Hello, hello to all the salon professionals out there. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day wherever you are and whatever you might be doing. One thing that I promise for you is that today it's going to get just a little bit better. On today's episode of the Salon Scoop podcast, I have the pleasure of speaking with one of the most inspirational people that I know in our industry, the one and only Heather Bagby. Heather, to me, I've known you for many years now, and you're one of the most genuine people that I know. And I feel like I share a lot of values, but I love just how much you truly, truly care about helping people in our industry. And you've just been involved in doing so much and giving so much to help the industry. And I think it's amazing. And today we're going to talk about some of the industry challenges, but more importantly, try to offer back some tips to help people get ahead, stay focused, and really focus on one of the priorities, I know that's important for you, which is happiness and finding that happiness and incorporating that into culture. So thank you so much, Heather, for taking the time to be with us here today.
Well, thank you, Scott. I have to say, first off, I love your sweatshirt that you're wearing. Just going to go ahead and say it. But I appreciate that so much. We have known each other for many years. And I would say probably that's something that you and I have in common is just that not only genuine, but heartfelt expression of gratitude to all the people who choose to spend time with us and making sure that we can help people in any way.
Absolutely. So I'm grateful that you've chosen to take time to spend with me for the next little bit, and we'll try to bring as much value as we can to the listeners. But Heather, before we delve in, I'm going to start you off with one of our S.O.S signature questions that we always ask at the beginning of every episode. So for you, I'm going to challenge you. If you were stuck on a deserted island and can only bring one hair product, one book, and one snack, what would you bring with you?
All right, so hair product, that you're really putting me on the spot here, but I would say I'd have to bring my Redken number 12 hairspray because I have just very frizzy hair, and that is the best thing ever. Ironically, I love
especially on a humid deserted island, right? It's going to be a lot of humidity.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Florida, so let's be honest, like priorities here, right? So I would say I read lots of books, but I'm not a rereader of books. So I would say that my current book right now is this Dinners with Ruth, and this is with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and it's Nina Totenberg, the NPR legal affairs correspondent, and talking about all of the personal time she got to spend with Ruth, which I just started, and it's fascinating. So I would highly recommend it for sure. And you said snack, but I would change it to drink. I mean, clearly I'd bring some Irish whiskey. So let's be honest, like that would come with me.
I already knew that. That's why I was trying to ask you something different, but that's okay. That's your snack also.
Yeah.
Little bottle of Jameson. All right, Heather, we want our listeners to get to know you a little bit better. For those who maybe haven't been to one of your, summits or seminars and don't know your background. So you just give us a quick background as to how you got into the beauty industry, who you were at the time, where you were, and what was the trigger for you?
Yeah, well, I got into the industry really through my mom. My mom is a salon professional. She's a stylist, a salon owner, and has been as long as I can remember. So I always tell, ironically, as a child growing up, because my mom owned a salon, I was, I'm going to use the word forced, but to spend a lot of time there. And I did not actually want to have anything to do with the industry. I, took some turns and spent about 10 years of my professional career working in association management. And it was only when my kids were young, really young, actually, they were 3 and not quite 1, my husband and I decided to relocate to Florida. And when we did that, I kind of sat down with my mom and was like, you know what, I'd love to be involved in some way in the salon company again. And I honestly did not intend it to be any full-time anything. I was still working for my firm out of Chicago. And I'll say that when I was able to get introduced to the principles of Summit is really when I, for the very first time, found that there was a role for me as someone who had great respect for the industry. I was not confused at all that everything I enjoyed in my life came from the salon industry. I always had great respect for it, loved the people, because when you spend your whole life in a salon growing up, you get to be around some pretty incredibly amazing people. I just didn't really know what my role would be, because I would say you have to know your gifts, and one of mine is definitely not going to be on the hair side. So, I didn't realize where I could contribute until I had the opportunity to really contribute on the business side.
Amazing. And so you got involved obviously with your salon. I know that you now own 2 salons in the Tampa area, one academy as well, which is obviously a huge undertaking. And you have evolved greatly, obviously, in the summit world, from probably, just attending the summit as a attendee with your mom at the salon way back in the day, to now, being one of the shareholders and, one of the key members of the leadership team with Summit Salon Business Center. For those who don't know, it's the world's largest salon business consulting company. And let's not forget that you're also a mom of, 2 incredible humans that you just referenced. So what does your day-to-day look like these days in terms of how you juggle your time and all these different priorities? Because that's a real, challenge for a lot of people in our industry.
Yeah, I wish that I could say that I managed all my time in life, appropriately. My children are adults now, almost 22 and 20. I know,
What?
right, Scott?
No,
How can
that is
that
not
be?
possible.
My oldest is a marine biologist, and my youngest is a sophomore in college. So, I would say that time is always a thing, right? To me, my husband and I made a commitment when our kids were very young. We both traveled for work, and we knew we were going to have probably not a conventional life when it comes to, we didn't have one parent that was going to be home. Let's just say it that way.
Right.
And for us, what we decided to do from very, very early on was to make sure that our kids had like a very dependable schedule. Like they would always come home to the same place, like have their activities, make sure that their life stayed very scheduled so that we could, kind of work within that space. And I have to say it worked really well for us. They turned out okay. I used to joke, when I was traveling, specifically when my kids were much younger, people would always say things to me like, how are your children? Are they okay? Almost insinuating that because I was a traveling working mom, that they would be harmed in some way. And I know it's a very innocent question. But after a while, you start to respond kind of cheeky. I used to say silly things like, I don't really know. I don't check in on them, like just to see what people's reaction was, which is absolutely not true, as you can imagine. But besides making sure their schedule stayed the same, the other thing that has worked well for us is we really do schedule out a lot of quality time. So, actually yesterday I was scheduling out a lot of things that we'll do as a family in 2023. And we don't always know where we're going to go, or, maybe it's a big trip or a small trip, but, and in our family, it's definitely quality that we're looking for. And if we can have concentrated quality time, then we're going to end the year on a good note.
Nice. I like that a lot. So then how do you juggle on the professional side? If you own 2 salons and the academy, I know you travel a lot, with Summit, and you're teaching constantly. How do you juggle all of those elements of your life?
Great people. There's no doubt. Have an incredible leadership team in our salon companies. Certainly, there's an incredible team at the Summit Salon Academy in Tampa that I would take zero credit, because the people in there doing the day-to-day are amazing humans. And most of my time is spent with Summit Salon Business Center. But that's my love of helping even salon companies to find their people, create that community that they can have a lot of really great employees hopefully one day become part of that leadership team and have a great succession plan where they can actually, own part of those companies. And that's what we've done in all of our companies. We make sure that there are share opportunities for people who are helping to build it. We want them to own a piece of it and really pass it on and leave a legacy that is about the people.
Wonderful. And I think, we can't get by. Too many people try to just, juggle all the balls themselves, and sort of then end up dropping the balls because there's just too much going on. And they're like, I don't know how to manage. I don't know how to do this. So, your point of just surrounding yourself with really great people that you can start to trust and that you can kind of bring into the fold, to be, whether they, are managers or whether they eventually are partners, in your different endeavors, really is a key, I think, success factor.
Yeah, for sure.
To kind of getting ahead. So anyways, you've definitely touched, and influenced so many people over the years. I would love to know who has been one of the biggest influences for you personally in your life over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly had many influences, many positive for sure. My mom, who I've mentioned, who's a huge mentor in my life. My dad as well, definitely just an incredible human. I would say on the professional side, I had the opportunity when I was at university getting my undergrad. I was able to work with the athletic department, and at the time, the person who was the head swim coach, and who's done some pretty amazing things in his career, being a U.S. Olympic coach, and has had a very successful run. I had the privilege of working with him when he was in his early 30s, building a national championship team. And at the time, I thought he was really old, which is funny because now I'm quite a bit older than that. But I had the opportunity, I believe it was maybe it was last year, to have him come speak to the whole summit team at our staff retreat, as a big time Olympic coach these days, but kind of talk about, building a championship team and how the team is about the people. And I've seen so many parallels in my professional life, because I started in international athletics. It's a team is a team. And, he really influenced me on how you recruit the right people. It's all about the person. It's not about even then, considering building a national championship athletic team. It was more about the person, how we always say at Summit, hire the personality and train the skill, hire the right people, recruit the right people. He also taught me that, you do have to have all of those coaches on that coaching staff is huge, and having the right types of people that share a common vision and values, so that you can have great influence over the entire team. And, I think it was 2015, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame at where I went to school, and I had the opportunity.
You can say where you went to school, Heather. We know you're proud of your alumni.
I do love my Auburn Tigers. Yes, I went to Auburn University. And when he was inducted in the Hall of Fame, I sent him a note because afterwards, it really dawned on me that I'm quite sure my 18 to 21-year-old self did not realize the opportunity I was given to be a part of something, and to learn. I traveled the world with them, to learn what I was able to learn and see what I was able to see, and how much it positively has influenced my career. So I felt so wonderful that I was able to express that gratitude as a more mature adult.
Yeah, I think, as you were telling that story, it made me think back. I had a fitness coach from school, one of the sort of elective physical education classes that I took. And I still quote him to this day on something that he said in class, when I was, I think, 17, 18 years old. And I remember it to this day, and it's kind of, shaped from a personality standpoint, certain things that I do. And it's funny how we never know some of these people that we, encounter in our life at young ages, as you, just sort of said that, you probably didn't recognize all the learnings that you were actually getting, as an 18 to 21-year-old about teams and communication and culture and building all that it was going to be applicable for you in so many ways in your future. But I think it's probably just an important lesson for us to just always have our eyes and our ears wide open, and take, all of the information, all of the insights that we can get at different points in our lives, and recognize that it may not have tremendous value right away, in our lives, but some of this stuff it's all part of the building blocks, of who we become, and how we kind of, I guess, pass on some of these legacies, as you're sort of relating to.
Yeah, for sure.
Love it. Let's talk a little bit about, because we're starting to delve into the people component, which is just such a critical factor, of any environment, as you talked about, athletics, sports teams, but also obviously in the business world, it comes down to the people. And I know that you have been, extremely passionate about bringing forth this sort of concept of happiness and the happiness project. And I love seeing on your Instagram that your sort of title is the CEO of happiness, or Chief Happiness Officer, I think is.
That was my self-appointed title. It wasn't officially granted to me, but I still put it on my Instagram.
Well, I think you should officially be granted that title, because I think it emanates so naturally from you. So tell us a little bit about sort of where or when this sort of happiness concept became such a focal point for you, and more importantly, like how did it come about?
Yeah, several different things. When I was first introduced to the Summit concepts, where you're really asking people in your company to plan their day, predetermine what they're trying to earn, really work towards having control over their career. Everything about that is so that they can get what they want out of life. And there's two things that my dad always said, which are so true, and I think everyone listening will resonate with this. One thing that he said for years was, and my dad grew up in New York, so he's like, I say, what, Heather, it's not the money, it's the money. Like, there was this phrase that he would use, and as a kid, you kind of roll your eyes, you're like, what the hell is dad talking about? But really, if you think about it, it isn't the money, but it is the money. In other words, money doesn't make you happy. I mean, we all know money doesn't make people happy, but money allows people to make good choices. And when people have the ability to make choices, they tend to be happier. When you kind of think about all of that alignment. And then if you really start thinking about it, when you earn something, so money that's earned based on your own merit, not something you inherited, not something that was given to you, but that you went out there and you earned it, there's a tremendous amount of happiness that's tied to that. I mean, it's like, it's in your soul that that you went out there, did what you needed to do, and then you were able to earn, a beautiful living based off of that. So I really feel like everything we do at Summit is a happiness project. It's asking people questions, and it's not about telling people they have to be happy. And I just really want to say that respectfully, because I would never go to anyone and say, you need to be happy. That's not at all what it is. It's asking people what makes you happy, and then respecting their response. And Scott, we've talked about this for years, but it can be anything. People, it's hysterical. Like, some people, they just want to be able to eat out once a week. I know that's how I felt when I was young in my career, and money was a lot tighter. Sometimes I just want to go to a concert. Sometimes it's a bigger vacation. And then, of course, at any stage of your life, that's going to change. Then we get into bigger things like upgrading vehicles, homes, being in the right school system, college. Hopefully everyone who's listening knows those young people are expensive. So, you've got to think about that, retirement, all of that stuff. And it's different throughout the stages of your life. So really engaging with salon owners to ask, when they're doing coaching with their team, why not just ask them the question, hey, Scott, tell me what's making you happy these days. Then I check in with you a month later. Is this still making you happy? Because I believe people can reserve the right to change their mind. I may be wanting to go on a really great trip and then decide, wait, I actually want to buy a new house. I mean, whatever that looks like depends. That the person who's helping me get there would have respect for my response, whatever it is. Because once we know that as coaches and mentors, it's now we can focus on the math and help people achieve what they need to achieve.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to recognize that, as you sort of alluded to, everybody's motivators are different, right? Sometimes we go in with our own, glasses and assume, right, that people's happiness is based on something, or their motivation is based on something, and that's, putting maybe our own lens on it. And the reality is that, every human being out there is unique and is different, and everybody has different motivators. And as a leader, as a mentor, as a coach, it's so important to get in touch with your people to understand, what really motivates them, or as you said, what makes you happy, right? There's just a huge link, because we're driven as human beings often to sort of try to lean towards those things that make us happy, that bring us joy, and that's what motivates our behavior. And if you don't understand that about each individual, then you're not going to be able to give the best of yourself to help them get to where they need to be. And it's not the same. Too often we just assume that everybody's motivated by money, but as we're sort of saying here, it's not about it's the money, but it's not about the money. Like, sure, there's a money behind it, to get there, but it's not the same amount, of money that everybody needs to be happy. And we all know lots of people that make lots and lots and lots of money, that are miserable, unhappy people. They don't enjoy their lives. And there's lots of people in the world, not just in America. I mean, we can look obviously to less developed countries. I think it's a great example sometimes is, people that are living with, not much developed, electricity, water, whatever the case may be. But you know what? They are genuinely happy because they're surrounded by their loved ones. And I think sometimes it's just, important to gain that perspective a little bit about what's really, really important. So
Absolutely.
Let's come back a little bit to linking it to success. Like, how do you define success?
Yeah, it's interesting. To me, the word success is a little scary because, and I don't want to project my own things on other people, but, we talk about this a lot in a lot of our programs. Success, sometimes when you get into that success zone or feeling successful, you can also feel comfortable. And I'm not sure, not that we want people to be uncomfortable, but, to me, in my companies and even in my personal life, we're really trying to have like a sustainable way of existing. Are our companies sustainable? Our personal life sustainable? There was a lot. Well, there've been lots of books written on like, how are the kids? Do the kids have the type of environment that they can count on, that they can be mired into? But I see that hugely right now as my kids are, on their own. They're both home right now, which is nice, but when they're on their own in the world, that this is part of their existence. So, I don't mean to be flippant, but I would define success that people are finding happiness in their life, but that they also have created an existence where there is a lot of, I don't want to say control, but definitely the ability for their brain sort of calm down and enjoy the experience. Human beings crave structure. So, there's certain things that need to be a part of everyday life and in business too. I'm kind of like the boring person in this industry that's always talking about the math and the budgets and all of that. But there's a reason behind that, because that allows you to have sustainable companies. Even when things go sideways, you can get back to center rather quickly.
Well, that's your skill set too, as you talked about earlier, right? You're not going to be teaching people how to do tremendous balayages. So you got to stay in your lane and
Yeah.
share share your expertise where you're strong. So
That's right.
what do you see as some of the biggest challenges that are holding salon professionals back from either achieving, success for them or achieving
Yeah.
happiness or feeling that happiness that that people seek?
Yeah, this is something I think about a lot because you really want to be able to help direct people in the appropriate way, and but again, do it in a way that makes sense to them, right? So I'd say as a salon owner, what I see right now is the biggest challenge for leaders in our industry is they tend to try to make their dream their employee's dream. And I think it can come off as a very hard thing for some of the employees to live up to, if you will. So constantly telling people that, your dream does not have to be your employee's dream. I do believe, as I said before, you certainly need to have a team with shared vision and values. There's no doubt about that. But you and I can share some common values. How we choose to do our work life, our schedules may not be the same. You may be a much higher revenue producer than me. All of that does not mean that we wouldn't fit in the same company. So, from a salon professional standpoint, I think it's working with your owners to figure out your right space, or if you are doing this deal on your own, figuring out how you can create the right metrics. I see for service providers still to this day, Scott, and it really hasn't changed since I entered the industry. It's that poverty mentality that can creep in, and really, unfortunately, allowing guests to dictate pricing, allowing guests to dictate growth, allowing the guests to hold a lot of professionals back in our industry by, complaining about insignificant things. And then unfortunately, the service provider decides that they need to discount their services or not talk about important things like take-home products and things that we know are really going to grow their business, future reservations. And I think for service providers right now, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of disruptors that are just saying things for attention, which worries me for people just a little bit, because silly things like don't rebook your clients because they may cancel. It's just just trying to, I think, get some attention online, which could really harm, in my opinion, could really harm people long term by honestly, like, let's just be real. Can we just ask our guests to come back? I mean, like just things that we know from a human standpoint that need to be a part of it. So making sure that the people that they are listening to, that, the advice is something that's going to help them grow. And really focus on the growth part, which I would call wealth mentality or growth mindset, that we're constantly just asking people to tap into, that they have the opportunity to think about, well, what if I was able to achieve that? And honestly, I don't have any opinion whether somebody wants to work 1 day a week in our industry or 5 days a week in our industry. I think that if you show up for one shift a week, 100% present, charge everybody properly, make exactly the most that you can make in that one shift, and I think that's amazing. If you want to do it 3 shifts a week, I think that's wonderful. And if it's your full-time thing at 5 days, then we know certainly you can earn an extraordinary living in this industry. I think salon owners, however, have to get their mind around that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a sticky situation, and as you say, it's been something that's existed for a long time in our industry. I love that you sort of went down the path of the poverty mentality versus wealth mentality, and I think we need to recognize that there's so much abundance out there and an opportunity, and sometimes we limit ourselves in terms of our thinking, and whether that's looking at competition, as yourself as a service provider, if you're a stylist or esthetician, sometimes you feel like you're competing against the person that's sitting next to you, or maybe you're competing with a service provider that works a few blocks away. At the end of the day, if you stay within your scope and do the right thing with your clients. There's enough clients, there's enough hair, there's enough beauty needs out there for everybody to be successful. And we actually achieve so much more when we start focusing on that rather than looking at the little things that are going wrong, which is, to your point, the poverty mentality. I think we need to see the world as abundant a lot more. I wanted to get into a little bit of sort of this intelligent verbiage. I know that it's something you're really passionate about. You've even, put together a 5-module course about intelligent verbiage that salon professionals can purchase on the summitsalon.com website. And it's, part of the Summit program that's taught. Can you maybe just give us a few examples of verbiage that you speak about and why it's important?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would speak to the origin of it a little bit, because we were talking about my original career in collegiate athletics and international athletics, and my boss at the time, because where I went to university, and I think most universities, the larger revenue producing sports get a lot of attention. So, of course, you think of in the US, you would think of American football. You definitely, basketball is going to be up there, baseball, depending on where you are, hockey, so like those sports are going to generate a significant amount of revenue for the school. And honestly, which is fantastic, because a lot of that revenue gets filtered to all sports. So this is going way back in the day, Scott, when we used to send letters out in the mail. You remember those days? Like, they'd get printed on letterhead and
like the stamps.
Yes, yeah, there were. Oh gosh, remember that? God, yeah. I think we had a self-adhesive stamps then. It wasn't that long ago, but this would be in the early 90s. For recruiting, we would have to send out, letters, it was all phone calls and letters, and there's lots of rules around those things. And the letterhead that the university had at the time would say revenue sports and non-revenue sports. And non-revenue sports were things like, tennis, swimming, the equestrian team, like all of these things. And my boss, the head coach, he said, we need to change this letterhead to everything under swimming needs to say Olympic sports, because we were building people that were going to be trying out for the Olympic team. Yeah. And it really, like, as a young person, I thought, gosh, what a small change, but what a huge change. Like, yeah, it's not going to bring in a ton of revenue to the university, but it is going to bring a lot of prestige. And a lot of these young athletes were on a lot of world championship teams, Olympic teams, all kinds of things. And there's a lot to be said about not always what you say, but definitely how you say it. Like, how do you change those words? And that is kind of where everything about intelligent verbiage was born, is how do we introduce a lot of the same concepts into the salon professional industry, and remind people that it's okay to utilize scripts, as long as they're not, they can't be canned to the point where it's not genuine. So to me, it's all about being authentic. And I mean, I ask everybody, please don't say anything if it's not authentic. And please never offer people something they don't need. I mean, to me, that's just like, it has to be the obvious point of what we're trying to say. But what if we did just think about how we would make offerings? So thinking about simple things like not using the word pre-book to the client on stage. To me, that's a backstage word. But just talking to people about securing their future reservation. We use words like complimentary versus free. We tell people they will enjoy services. So I may say, would you like to enjoy a treatment color service? Just thinking strategically on how you make offerings. When we raise our prices, we don't say silly things like, this is going to be X amount of dollars more. We use the term only an additional. So, I may have a guest come in that's going to have 3 services today, and I would let them know that all 3 services are only an additional $18 or only an additional $21. Depending on, what the additional price point for all of those services. So in our view, intelligent verbiage it's not about telling people what to say. It's about asking them to borrow our voice until they find their own voice within the script, and then use the ones that we know work really well as long as they're authentic and genuine.
Yeah, totally makes sense. But it's amazing. I mean, every little example that you shared there, it's easy to just look at the two alternatives and see how, changing one little word has such a big potential impact on the meaning, of what's understood. And that's really what it comes down to, right?
Sure.
And sometimes we take it for granted, but the words that we use are critical. And I know one of the sayings that's important, I mean, change your words, change your results, or, some people say change your words, change your life, because it really is that powerful. And it warrants, putting a little bit of thought and effort, into it, because it really can make a huge difference. So I've always loved hearing, over the years, because it's so, sometimes we just take it for granted, but there's slightly different ways that we can change, each sentence really, to make it a little bit more powerful, and work for you.
Yeah.
Really fantastic. Any sort of quick mentors that you feel that salon professionals, whether it's the owners or actual service providers, can be looking towards to continue to just kind of absorb a lot of this, positive mentality, the right verbiage, just examples that they can look at on a daily basis or follow potentially to help?
Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely there are many people in the professional beauty industry that people can look to for all different facets. I'm really passionate these days that I certainly know that there's a lot of people that came before me that many people are familiar with, that we would share. It's probably just the phase of my life, where I am. I'm really looking at the generation that came after me and learning a lot, like just so much from the people that are not new, but newer in the industry, and how they've really just done so much to change the way we approach life, change the way we approach just, scheduling in a salon company. And many come to mind, but I would say one of my mentors in my life is one of my partners in the salon. He also is involved in Summit, but his name is Blake Evans, or Blake Reed Evans on Instagram. He's a very, very wise human being, and just taught me a ton. And I realize more and more as I go through life, I'm always very interested on his perspective, what he has to say, because I want to always make sure that, what we're doing in our salon companies and what we're doing for Summit and the industry at large, that his perspective is taken into consideration, because he is quite a bit younger than me. I think it's important that we all have those people that we go to. Luckily, as we get a little older, we do have a little more wisdom. So if you're willing to match that with some people that are looking at things from a slightly different lens, and ironically, there's a whole generation coming in after Blake now. So he's starting to realize too that the Gen Zs are a part of that. And if I would say that, I would say my kids for sure, talking to them now as young adults and asking them questions about what they're looking for and what they want. It's been invaluable to me as a professional speaker, talking to people about who your new employees are, because there is a lot to be said about the different generations and how they're influenced and the way they look at things, and how they kind of expect us as the, I'm going to say more mature, hopefully, people that went before them, they want them to be in that sphere, but they also want to be related. They want them to be relatable to where they are in life as well.
Great perspective, because everybody does come with their different lens, their different experience, and the different generations obviously have different experiences and wealth. So I think that's an important thing to recognize, is not necessarily to only be looking at, 2 or 3 people that come from the same generation in terms of looking towards them as a mentor or guide, but being open to all the different perspectives that are coming, because it'll help you, whether you're a business owner yourself or, as a service provider, you have guests ranging, different age groups as well, and to really be able to tap into understanding the different needs, trends, motivations can just help you be a better provider of service and customer experience at the end of the day. So let's close up our conversation here, Heather. This has been a really fun chat, but I want to ask one last signature question that we do with each and every guest. So Heather, what advice would you give to somebody who was starting their career in our industry today, or wanting to sort of revamp their career and get back on the right track?
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you what I would tell anybody, and it's, you have to start with math. You really have to sit down and take the time to figure out what is it that you're trying to go for every single day. And I really believe that every single thing in life is a math exercise. Whether you're planning your holiday dinners and how many people you're going to have come over, hopefully that you're looking into all of those things, your budget for holiday gifts, your career in the salon right now, how you want to finish the year. There's still several days left in the year. I think so often people sort of show up and just wait for things to happen. And I tell everybody, be the kind of person that's working to make things happen. I'm not saying you can manufacture success, but I do believe that people who plan to make more money will actually make more money. I mean, they may not always hit the exact dollar amount that they're going for, but I would argue they're going to get a lot closer to what that looks like. And if there is the opportunity to just name the number and work that plan all day, every day, and stay focused on it. That's one of my favorite things about this industry. For those of you who are service providers, it is amazing what you can do financially if that's what you choose to do.
Completely agree. What you focus on and what you track grows. Yeah. Pure and simple. It is one of the magic kind of powers of the universe. If you actually do stay on top of it, you can grow. So having those targets and tracking and working towards it, you get there. And taking action, as you said, being an initiator and a more active as opposed to passive individual really helps you take advantage of the opportunities that are right in front of you. If you keep your eyes open. Great inspirational advice from an inspirational person in our industry. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, Heather. It's been a pleasure having you. If people want to connect with you directly, or maybe find out about the summit, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, well, you can certainly connect with me on Instagram. It's just Heather Bagby. You can find me on summitsalon.com. There's a little icon, This Is Us, and you can email me directly from there if you'd like.
Amazing. And we will share that in the show notes as well. You can find it there. It was fantastic to get the scoop on your experiences and advice for industry professionals. Everyone listening, if you enjoyed this conversation, please write a review on Apple Podcasts or rate us on Spotify. Share this with at least one other person that you feel would benefit from the information. That's the way that we can help more people in the industry, which is ultimately our common shared objective. So have a great, wonderful day, everyone, and spread some happiness.
Thank you, Scott. Great to be with you.